Welcome back, everybody, to Beer Brackets. Alessandro, this is an episode that I didn't know if we would ever get to, but we've covered some of the world's best Trappist beers. We've touched a little on microbrews. We've touched a little on the mainstream, but today we're doing what is probably the biggest mainstream beer, at least in North America, would be the king of beers, Budweiser. Man, I'm excited because we're actually going to do a full review of Budweiser. We are going to do a can versus bottle to find out which version of Budweiser is better. This is going to be great. This is going to be pretty good. The biggest thing I always wondered about Budweiser was the name. It's a North American brewed beer, but then the name doesn't sound very traditionally English, so to speak.
Not at all.
Not at all, right? So, being the connoisseurs and the scholars that we are at Beer Brackets, we did our research, looked around a little bit, found out that the name Budweiser actually means, it's a German derivative that means of Budweis, which is a town in now Czech Republic, which this beer is actually very closely related to in some ways. And I think you have a little bit of experience with that growing up in Italy, right?
You are absolutely right, my friend. And it was just after doing some research and obviously after moving here to the US that I started connecting some dots. And the reason is when I growing up in Italy, and in Europe in general, this is not a beer that is commonly available, at least not as common as it is here in North America. And even when it is, you would normally find it as Bud, just like the first three letter of the Budweiser word.
Just Bud, and it's crazy. I think even if you search on the general Wikipedia page, they have a picture of the bottle of Budweiser, the same logo, same branding and everything, but just Bud.
So that's kind of a mystery, right? And then coming here, starting living here in the US, obviously here it's Budweiser, you find it everywhere. It's quite common, popular, and doing a little bit of research, it turns out that AB, Anheuser-Busch, that it's now part of a bigger company called AB InBev that owns a lot of different beer brands and small craft breweries. They own Budweiser, but Budweiser is also the name of a beer that is brewed still nowadays in the Czech Republic. So there's a little bit of a copyright issue in some countries in Europe. So in certain countries, it is Budweiser cannot use that name because it doesn't own the rights over that name. And Ireland is an example where they're allowed to. So when I traveled to Ireland a couple of times, while being in Europe, I was surprised to actually see the full name there. It never really occurred to me that there was actually this little issue behind the difference in the names.
It is time, my friend. No more time to waste. Let's crack these open. Let's get right into it.
Yes.
Good hiss.
Look at that.
Good hiss.
This little crown there on top of the can. I love it.
Guys, if you've watched any of our reviews before, you know that we do like to review the can version of beers. Just to point that out one more time. It is a version of the beer that is untouched by external elements that could affect a beer when it's in a bottle, whether that be light getting through the glass, aging, so on and so forth. So we do like to go with the can because it's the closest approximation to drinking it straight out of a keg or on tap. My friend, let us take a whiff. Aroma cheers.
Aroma cheers, my friend.
Okay. You start, sir. Let me know what you think.
I will say,
the
aroma is very clean. Let's use this word.
It's
clean.
Very
clean.
I don't smell
a lot of the toasted elements that are typical in a lager, pale lager.
Yeah.
Very little hops. There's honestly very little aroma in this beer. I'm really struggling here to get.
You're struggling to get anything out of it. Just give me something. Give me something.
And I'm trying, just to focus on what I smell.
Clean isn't a word that I would normally associate with Budweiser in my mind.
Yeah, I don't have a better descriptor, and that might be kind of
it's a good one. It's a good one.
Language.
It's clean because there's not a ton there, right? It's just very
clean in the sense of clean air. Let's put it that way. So yeah, I will say, like, I don't know, I don't have much to say here on the aroma. Like there's very little.
We're stumped for the first time in history. We have nothing to say. We normally can't shut up about these beers.
But again, like this might be, a plus for a lot of people, because it's, again, not much there, without trying to upset anyone. But honestly, for me, this is not one. If I had to judge strictly from the aroma, I don't think this would be a beer that would be inviting for me. So I'm sorry to do this, but I can't really give a full point here. So here I'm sticking with a 0 for me. I can't. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, King of Beer. I'm sorry.
This is the first 0. Dude, it's the first 0. Well, actually, in our Canada versus US video, which we weren't really being completely serious, to be fair to those beers that we tasted, there were a couple of zeros in there, but in an official review, this is kind of the first 0 that we've given. Oh boy, okay, well, God, first 0. Oh, Budweiser. What you said, very clean. It's very minimal. There's not a lot there. You get the standard sort of like pale lager aromas. There's a little bit of maltiness. There's a little bit of toastedness in there. There's a little bit, if you really want to look for it, maybe you can get some slight fruity notes if you're really stretching and really. But you know what? This is kind of like, it's like Corona in the sense that it's meant to be non-offensive. It's meant to be easy drinking. It's meant to be just non-offensive on the palate, on the nose, in every way, shape, or form. You know what? I'm not going to go down to a 0 just because there's nothing offensive there for me, really. And I'm actually kind of enjoying the little bit of maltiness that I'm getting out of the aroma, the tiny little bit that I'm getting. I'm going to give it a 1. It's decent. As far as like a pale lager goes, I'm getting a little bit of breadiness, a little bit of maltiness. So you know what? I'll give it a 1. Now, my friend, it's the taste. This is always traditionally our favorite part. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's see what we think about the king of beers, so to speak. Apparently. Allegedly. Now,
taste.
See, before we started filming, we were talking about this, how we hadn't had this beer in a while. Traditionally, I hadn't really liked this beer very much. And we don't discriminate. We're avid beer drinkers. We'll drink mostly what you put in front of us without complaining too much. But let's get into this. Go. What do you think about the taste?
Well, on the aroma, I was probably a little bit taken by surprise. Here on the taste, I actually quite like what's happening. You do get a little bit more of that toasted element. At least I do get it more on the palate, and that sweetness typical of like lagers, and a nice, very gentle hop presence. Crisp, very crisp and acidic, in a refreshing way. We're not talking about sour style, like we're just talking like a little bit of crispiness, but very refreshing and pleasant. So with this, this is a nice beer. So it's 1 for sure on the taste here for me.
I like that you mentioned acidity. There's definitely an acidity to the taste there. You get a little bit of that maltiness. There's bread, but sort of like, you know what? I would compare this to like a white Wonder Bread. You know what I mean? Like just a loaf of Wonder Bread, but the white version that's basically cake. If you take like a bite of that, where there's a little bit of sweetness to it. So it's bread, but not really. It's like artificial bread, but it has a little sweet little edge to it. I would compare it to that, the Wonder Bread beer, which fits in a lot of different ways. It's, you know what? It's nice. It's not. I remembered the taste being a little bit more offensive, a little bit more acidic. Using that word again, I remember it being a little bit more pungent, a little bit more overpowering, a little bit more unbalanced. But maybe it's just out of the can, and we will find out in the can versus bottle. So keep an eye open for that, whether the bottle makes a difference in that sense, because I've actually never had it in a can. It's nice. I'm going to give it a 1 on 3, man. This is actually a very nice taste. It's refreshing. There's not much there, but what is there? It's, again, a nice maltiness.
Exactly.
Nothing too offensive. Yeah. What do you think about the mouthfeel on this?
Let's refresh, as it's a tradition here at Beer Brackets.
It is the Beer Brackets tradition.
Yeah, that's so nice.
It's so nice.
It's actually kind of surprising. I have to say that, just again, trying to focus only on that element, which sometimes is difficult, at least for me, like especially when it comes to taste and mouthfeel. they tend to be very tied together. I find it actually quite refreshing. It's nice. It's light on your tongue. It doesn't leave too much of a oily or sticky presence. It leaves a little bit of lingering bitterness that comes across like a little bit more in the finish, but I don't want to get too much into that. But what I like about it is, again, that nice and clean, refreshing feeling that it leaves in your mouth. Like the carbonation is there, but it's not like overpowering. It's just almost initially, and then it fades away quickly, leaving a sense of refreshment. I wouldn't have thought that, but honestly, I have to bump this up to a 2 on the mouthfeel, because I'm really enjoying the way that it just like leaves the scene. So it's almost like it's there and then it's gone, and it lets you wonder. Like, so I really like that.
Man, I agree with you. This is a 2 on 3 mouthfeel for me too. It's really nice, refreshing for actually exactly the same reasons that you said. And this isn't a cop out for me, and that's not just because I can't think of anything to say. You described it perfectly, man. Like it's really refreshing. It doesn't stick around too much. It's a little bit oily, but not overly oily in the sense that it sticks around too long in your palate or makes you salivate. It's really nice. It's really refreshing, man. Not much more to say on that. 2 on 3 for mouthfeel. Good job, King of Beers. But now
beer is coming back.
The finish is a big one on this one. So I remembered the bottled version having kind of an offensive finish. What do you think of the canned version of Budweiser?
I agree with you. I that's what I associate with it, a little bit more harsh overall. So I'm going to refresh just a little bit here really quickly.
You are allowed. There's no restrictions in this beer brackets world. You can refresh as much as you want.
That's why I like it.
That's why we like being in this world. It's a nice place here.
It is.
Really nice.
It's actually one of my favorite places to drink beer. Like it's my favorite for sure.
Same. You guys should visit sometime.
Let's get serious here. Let's give an accurate reading.
Oh, we're getting serious.
Beer brackets.
Are we breaking? We're going into beer barometer mode. We're getting serious. Okay.
So, finish. It's actually quite surprising, because while on the aroma in the glass, just smelling out of the glass, there's not much, at least for me again. On the finish, I get a little bit more of that retronasal aroma that kicks in. So yeah, I get more of that breadiness, a little bit more of almost that fruity, but in a sense of banana-like. It's very, very gentle. But it's there. But what I like about the finish is that the hops are showing for me way more than in the other elements. So they are slowly coming through, leaving that nice bitterness lingering. So it's not quite complex, but it's very pleasant. So I'm thinking, and I think I'm going to stick with the 1, because it's lacking a little bit of complexity for me personally to bring it up to a 2, but it definitely deserves a 1 on the finish. What do you think, my friend?
What do I think? Going into beer barometer mode. Focus. This is actually tough for me, because I was expecting this finish to be a lot more offensive than it is. So I'm actually really surprised. So I'm thrown off. I had all these things I wanted to say coming into it for my memories of Budweiser. You know, there's something that lingers on the finish. There's not much. There's nothing interesting. There's nothing that really makes me say, I like that. It's very... I gotta take one more sip here.
Please, it's important to help the accurate reading.
I mean, it's just kind of like maltiness on the finish for me. That's all I'm getting. But I associate the bottle version as being just like that maltiness is very heavy and stays for a long time. So I'm actually really excited to film the can versus bottle episode right after this, to see if the bottled version is what I remembered it being. On this, the finish is actually a lot more pleasant than what I remembered. There's not much there. I mean, I'm just saying it's not offensive, but there's nothing there that's really pleasant. You know what, man? You went 0 on the aroma. I think I'm going 0 on the finish. It's just a little bit of maltiness, which you'd expect from a beer. It's like, it has a finish of a beer. That's about it. But so look, I mean, we went through everything at this point. Now it's an overall experience, man. What do you think of Budweiser, of Budweiser, so to speak, that Czech town?
So,
the king of beers.
The king of beer, and that's the thing. Like, after reviewing all the different elements, like you mentioned, I haven't had it in quite a bit. I have to say, I'm kind of surprised. I remembered it quite different. So it's nice to do this, break it down, like, and get to each single element. I honestly think it's a totally deserves a 1. Like it's a nice beer. It has like elements that are like the aroma for me, like it's really not there. For you, is a little bit more of the finish. But yeah, and overall, I think it deserves a 1.
It's a solid 1 for me as well, man. I agree with that. It's nothing too offensive. There's not much there. It's an easy drinking pale lager that has a little bit of flavor. Nothing too offensive. It's very sessionable, which I guess why it's so popular. I mean, you can easily sit down and drink 5 or 6 of those if the mood strikes. So hey, a 1 on 3 overall for the King of Beers. All right, guys, breaking down our final scores on this one. You know, we gave the zeros in different places. The first ever beer bracket zeros, which is a little concerning, but a little exciting at the same time. We've never seen them before. Overall, it came out to the same score, 1.66 on 5, which in our rating system, Alessandro, am I right, comes out to a nice beer?
Exactly.
Comes out to a nice beer. Budweiser is a nice beer. Whether that qualifies it as being the king of beers, that's subjective. That's up to you guys. You guys decide. Let us know down below. What do you think of Budweiser? Were we a little bit too ungenerous with it? Were we a little bit too generous on the mouthfeel? Let us know what you think down below. Alessandro, I don't know about you, but I am so excited to get right into this can versus bottle episode. Guys, we're going to have to let you go film that one right now. So if you're watching this review, get excited. If you're watching this when it was posted, keep an eye open. That can versus bottle is coming soon. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to close your beer brackets. Close them with the King of Beers. Why not? It's got a good mouthfeel, I gotta say.
It really has.
It's pretty
Never
decent.
forget.
Cheers, everybody.